"Goodbye, Robert," my son-in-law said, and then he pushed me off the balcony. I fell into the blizzard, my $1.7 billion empire vanishing above me. He thought the fall would kill me. He was about to learn that some deals don't close that easily. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Let me back up and explain how a celebration turned into my execution. The air in the Aspen Chalet was thin and biting, the kind of cold that usually sharpens the senses. I stood by the massive floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out at the blizzard. It was a whiteout, beautiful but deadly, a fitting backdrop for the end of my reign. My name is Robert Sterling. 40 years ago, I started Sterling Corp. With a small loan and an iron will. Today, it was a real estate empire. It was my life's work. It was also the reason I missed countless birthdays and dinners with my daughter Sarah, a regret that was beginning to feel very heavy and very sharp. In the center of the room, the fire crackled. It cast a warm glow on the expensive wood paneling, and on the man standing beside it, Mark Vance, my son-in-law. Mark was handsome, sharp. His suit fit him like a second skin. He had the kind of charisma that charmed investors and disarmed rivals. It had certainly charmed Sarah. I used to admire his ambition. Now I saw the darkness lurking beneath it. We were there to celebrate the Keystone deal, the largest acquisition in our history. It was meant to be my crowning achievement. The moment I would begin the slow process of handing the reins to Mark. The moment I thought I had secured my legacy. I couldn't have been more wrong. "It's done, Robert," Mark said. His voice was smooth as aged whiskey. He held up 2 crystal glasses filled with 20-year-old scotch. "The Keystone is officially ours. You did it." "We did it," I corrected mildly. I walked toward him and accepted the glass. I was tired. I was 62, and I was feeling every year. "But this is the easy part, Mark. Acquiring is simple. Building, sustaining, that's where the real work lies." Mark smiled, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. "Of course, but tonight we celebrate." He raised his glass to the future. We drank. The scotch was warm and smoky. It slid down my throat easily. Too easily. I settled into the leather armchair. The scotch was warm, but I felt a chill. Mark paced near the balcony doors. The wind howled outside. A restless energy radiated from him. "You seem distracted, Mark," I observed. He stopped, turned. "Just the altitude, Robert, and the excitement. This deal changes everything. It demands bold leadership." His eyes were too bright, his smile too tight. "It demands careful stewardship," I countered, swirling my glass. "Which is why I'm glad you'll have a few more years to learn before taking the CEO chair." The silence stretched. Mark didn't move. He just stared at me. The fire crackled, sounding suddenly too loud in the quiet room. He adjusted his cuffs, a nervous habit I'd clocked years ago. "A few more years?" His voice was quiet, dangerously quiet. "Robert, we discussed this. The transition was supposed to begin now." "I said we would begin the process," I clarified, setting my glass down. "I'm not ready to step down entirely. Not yet. There are things about this company, about its soul, that you still don't understand." Mark stepped closer. His mask slipped. I saw the anger, pure rage, quickly suppressed, but not quickly enough. "The soul of the company doesn't pay the shareholders, Robert," he spat. The respect was gone from his voice, replaced by contempt. "My strategies brought us this far. They brought us leverage, Mark, and risk." The room felt heavy. Then the dizziness hit me, a sudden crushing wave. The glass felt like lead in my hand. This wasn't exhaustion. This was something else. What's happening?" I mumbled. My vision blurred. The room tilted sideways. The crackling of the fire seemed distant, muffled. Like I was underwater, Mark crouched in front of me. His face was calm, terrifyingly calm. The mask was gone, replaced by something cold and dead. The face of a predator. "What's happening, Robert, is the future," he said. His voice was devoid of emotion. "You're exhausted, stressed. The altitude, the deal. Your heart just couldn't take the strain." The realization hit me with the force of a physical blow. It stole the breath from my lungs. "You drugged me." It wasn't a question. It was a death sentence. A sedative. "Very strong," he confirmed, as if discussing the stock market. "You see, Robert, I'm tired of waiting. I'm tired of being the apprentice. I've outgrown you. I tried to stand, to fight, to scream, but my limbs were useless. I was paralyzed, trapped in my own body. A prisoner watching his executioner, Mark stood up and walked to my briefcase. He took out the signed Keystone documents, the keys to the kingdom. Then he came back to me. He reached into my pocket, took my phone, my wallet. He unclasped the expensive watch from my wrist. A gift from Sarah. He wasn't just killing me. He was erasing me. Why? I gasped. The word was thick and slurred. I was giving it all to you, to Sarah. Eventually he spat. The word was filled with venom. But I want it now. And I don't want your shadow hanging over me. This needs to be a clean break. A clean break from my life. He reached into his own jacket and pulled out a sheaf of papers. Sterling Court bylaws. The incapacity clause. Robert, he said, waving the papers in my face. Very thorough. If you are unable to perform your duties, the successor takes control. He paused, letting the horror sink in. I have 2 doctors in Aspen, already paid. They will confirm your massive stroke. He had planned everything, every detail, ruthless efficiency. He dragged me from the chair. I was dead weight. The expensive rug burned against my cheek as he pulled me toward the balcony. The sound of my own body being dragged across the floor was sickening. He opened the doors. The blizzard rushed into the room, a blast of icy air. The cold hit me, shocking my system. But the drug was too strong. It held me captive. He pulled me out onto the expansive wooden balcony. It overlooked a steep, rocky ravine, hundreds of feet deep, a grave waiting for me. It's a tragedy, Robert, Mark said, raising his voice over the wind. A stroke, followed by confusion. You wandered out into the blizzard. He paused, savoring the moment. Your body won't be found until the spring thaw. By then, I will be Sterling Corp. He stood over me, looking down. No hesitation. No regret. It was simply a business transaction. The final hostile takeover. The acquisition of my life. Goodbye, Robert. He grabbed my legs and tipped me over the railing. I fell. The world dissolved into chaos. The wind roared in my ears. The snow and the darkness swallowed me whole. I wasn't thinking about the money or the company. I was thinking about Sarah, her face, betrayed by the man she loved, by the father who hadn't protected her. The image of her smile shattered in my mind. I hit something hard, a pine tree. The branches snapped, tearing at my clothes and skin. They slowed my fall, saved my life. Then I hit a deep drift of snow. It buried me completely. The impact knocked the wind out of me. The cold was so intense it felt like fire. I tumbled further down the ravine, hitting rocks beneath the snow, until I came to rest at the bottom. Pain exploded in my chest. My ribs were shattered. My leg was twisted at an impossible angle. Broken. I lay there, staring up at the swirling snow. The silence was absolute. I was dying. Mark had won. I let the darkness take me. I surrendered to the cold. I woke up to the smell of pine disinfectant and stale coffee. It was a smell of poverty, of desperation. It was not a smell I was familiar with. My world smelled of expensive cologne and leather-bound books. My body screamed. Every breath was agony. A sharp stabbing in my chest. I tried to move my leg, and a wave of nausea rolled over me. I was in a small, run-down clinic room. The paint was peeling. The floor was cracked. "Well, look who's back," a voice said. A woman in scrubs walked in. She looked tired, overworked, her face etched with the strain of too many long shifts. Her name tag read Linda. "Where am I?" I rasped. My throat was raw, like I had swallowed glass. "Mountain View Clinic, the local charity ward," Linda said, checking my IV drip. "You're lucky, Mr. Doe. A couple of teenagers on snowmobiles found you near the Keystone Trail 3 days ago. Hypothermia had almost set in, Mr. Doe. John Doe. A nameless nobody. 3 broken ribs, a compound fracture in your leg, severe concussion." Linda listed off the damages. "My things," I whispered. "My wallet, my phone." "You had nothing on you, sir," Linda said gently. "No ID, no jewelry, just the clothes on your back. And they were torn to shreds. Mark had been thorough. He hadn't just tried to kill me. He had stolen my identity before I died. I was a ghost, a billionaire reduced to a nameless charity case, a king without a kingdom. The weeks that followed were a blur of pain and humiliation. I was trapped, dependent on the kindness of strangers. I was used to giving orders, controlling everything. Now, I couldn't even sit up without help. Linda was patient. She treated me like a human being, not a balance sheet. It was a humility I hadn't felt in decades. Maybe ever. The physical therapy was torture. Old machines. Therapists stretched too thin. But the physical pain was nothing compared to the mental anguish. I was powerless. I was dead to the world. And the man who killed me was living my life. I thought constantly of Sarah. I imagined her grief, her devastation. She lost her mother 10 years ago. Now she believed she had lost me too. And I imagined Mark, the viper, comforting her with the same hands that had thrown me off the balcony. The thought made me sick with rage. He was using her grief, consolidating his power. He was building his throne on her tears. About a month later, Linda wheeled a small old television into my room. It might help pass the time, she said. I turned it on. A national business report flickered onto the screen. And there he was, Mark Van. He was standing at a podium in the lobby of Sterling Tower, my building. The Sterling Corp logo behind him had been redesigned, arrogantly including his initials, V.S. Vance Sterling. He was already erasing my name. It is with a heavy heart that we move forward, Mark was saying, his face a perfect mask of practiced grief. My father-in-law, Robert Sterling, was a giant. His sudden passing, following a massive stroke in Aspen, has left a void. A massive stroke, the lie echoed in the small clinic room. But Robert built Sterling Corp to last, Mark continued.
In his memory, as the newly appointed CEO, I promised to lead us into a new era of growth.
The camera panned to Sarah. She stood beside him, dressed in black, her face pale and hollow. She looked lost, broken. Mark placed a comforting arm around her shoulder. The conquering hero, consoling the grieving princess. The remote control shook in my hand. The rage I felt was so intense, it threatened to shatter my healing bones. He hadn't just stolen my company. He was stealing my daughter's life. I wanted to scream, to rush back to New York. That instant, but I was weak, crippled, penniless, a broken old man in a charity ward. The sheer impossibility of the task threatened to crush my spirit. I nearly gave up. The darkness washed over me again, but the image of Sarah's hollow eyes haunted me. I couldn't let him destroy her too. I had to get stronger, not for the company, not for revenge, but for her. I had to save my daughter from the monster I had welcomed into our lives. I channeled my rage into my recovery. I pushed myself harder than I should have. Ignoring the searing pain in my leg and ribs, I forced myself to walk. First with a walker, then with a cane. I needed strength. I needed a plan. I needed an ally. 2 months after the fall, I was finally discharged. My leg was still weak. My ribs still ached. But I could walk. Linda slipped $50 into the pocket of my donated coat. Good luck, Mr. Dell, she said. I stood on the sidewalk, the winter wind biting through the thin fabric. I was anonymous, invisible in the world I once ruled. I had to contact the one person I knew Mark couldn't corrupt, the one person I trusted with my life, David Chin, my CFO for 25 years. My oldest friend, David, was meticulous, cautious, fiercely loyal. He was the rock I had built my empire on. I found a payphone. I dialed David's private number, a secure line only I and his wife knew. The phone rang 4 times. My heart pounded against my damaged ribs. Each ring felt like an eternity. Hello? David's voice. Cautious, strained. David? I rasped. The blue dragon is hungry. It was a code phrase from years ago, a silly inside joke related to our first acquisition, a Chinese restaurant that nearly bankrupted us. Now it felt deadly serious. Silence. Then a sharp intake of breath. Robert. Oh, my God. Robert, is that you? They said we had a funeral. I gave a eulogy. His voice trembled. I know. Listen carefully. It wasn't a stroke. It was Mark. He tried to kill me in Aspen. He drugged me and threw me off the balcony. David didn't hesitate, no disbelief. Only a cold, rising fury. I knew it, he whispered. I knew something was wrong. The transition was too fast. He was too prepared, Robert. Where are you? Are you safe? I'm alive, but I have nothing. He took everything. David, stay on the line. I heard clicking. He was checking for surveillance. Okay, Robert, we have to be careful. Mark has been watching me. He knows we were close. The danger was real. If Mark traced the call, I was finished. And David's life would be in danger too. I was putting my friend at risk, but I had no other choice. He fired half the executive floor. David continued, his voice tight with anxiety. Anyone loyal to you? He's consolidating power. Fast. He used the incapacity clause. And Sarah? I asked, dreading the answer. She's a mess, Robert. Mark has her isolated. He's managing her grief. David hesitated. He told her you were stressed, drinking heavily that night, that you were erratic before the stroke. My heart clenched. My daughter believed I had abandoned her, that my own weakness had killed me, that betrayal hurt more than the fall, more than the broken bones. Mark hadn't just stolen my company. He had stolen my daughter's memory of me. Over the next few weeks, I made my way back to New York. David wired me small amounts of money, carefully hidden. I moved to a cheap, run-down apartment in a forgotten part of the city, far from the gleaming towers I used to own. The apartment smelled of mold and old cigarettes, but it was safe. I lived in the shadows, a ghost haunting my own city. I grew a beard, dyed my hair gray, wore clothes that made me look like just another forgotten old man. I watched Mark from afar. He was living the life he always craved. The penthouse, the private jet, the media attention. He was erasing my name from the buildings I had built. But David noticed something deeply unsettling. He called me late one night, using an encrypted line. He's not growing the company, Robert, David told me. His voice was tight with anxiety. He's liquidating it. I froze. Liquidating? Sterling Corp was built on assets. We never liquidated. The downtown properties, the European assets, even the Keystone deal, David explained. He's selling them off fast, and at a significant loss. It made no sense. These were our crown jewels. Why? I asked, confused. Why steal $1 billion empire just to tear it down? We didn't know the answer yet, but I realized I was fighting not just for control, but to save the very legacy Mark claimed he was protecting. We were running out of time. I had to reach Sarah. I needed her to see the truth. I tried calling her. Her number was changed. I sent letters. They were returned unopened. Mark had built a fortress around her. He controlled her reality. I decided to risk going to the penthouse. I needed to see her face. I waited across the street, hidden in a coffee shop for 2 days. It was agonizing, watching the life I used to live from the outside. Finally, I saw her leave alone. She was going to a pharmacy. She looked frail, fragile, her eyes hidden behind large sunglasses. She walked like she was carrying the weight of the world. I followed her, my heart pounding, my leg aching with every step. "Sarah!" I called out softly as she exited the store. She froze. She turned, her eyes wide with disbelief and terror. She dropped the small bag she was holding. "No, it can't be. Dad," her voice was a broken whisper. "It's me, sweetheart. I'm alive." I stepped closer, wanting to hold her. She'd backed away, trembling, her face pale. She wasn't seeing her father. She was seeing a ghost, or a nightmare. "Stay away from me," she whispered. "You're dead." Mark showed me the death certificate. "He lied, Sarah," I pleaded, my voice raw. "He tried to kill me. He drugged me in Aspen and threw me off the balcony. He stole everything." "No," she cried, shaking her head violently. Tears streamed down her face. "Mark wouldn't do that. He loves me. He's protecting me." Then she twisted the knife. "You were sick, Dad," she sobbed. You were stressed. You weren't thinking clearly. Mark said you were unstable, that you were drinking too much. She looked at me with pity and fear. He saved the company from you. Her words were knives, sharper than any blade. Mark had poisoned her mind against me. He had turned my daughter into my accuser. I couldn't breathe. The pain wasn't in my ribs. It was in my soul. The confrontation was devastating. She was too manipulated to accept the truth. I realized I couldn't rely on her help. I had to expose Mark so publicly, so completely that she couldn't deny it anymore. I retreated back into the shadows, utterly alone. David continued digging. He found anomalies, massive wire transfers to the Cayman Islands. But the evidence was complex, buried under shell corporations. Mark was smart. He covered his tracks. We need the doctors, I told David. The ones who signed the stroke report in Aspen. Find them. David tracked them down. 2 disgraced physicians working at a private clinic in Aspen, paid handsomely for their signatures. David approached the weaker one, Dr. Evans, a small man with sweaty palms and eyes that darted like a trapped rat. David threatened to expose his illegal practice to the medical board. The doctor cracked. He confessed Mark had orchestrated the whole thing, that they had never even examined me. David recorded the confession. We had the proof, but we still didn't understand the motive behind the liquidation. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source, the wild card I never anticipated. One evening, my burner phone rang. It wasn't David. Mr. Sterling? A woman's voice. Sharp, nervous, angry. You don't know me. My name is Jessica. I was Mark Vance's executive assistant. Was? I asked, my guard instantly up. He fired me yesterday, she said, her voice laced with bitterness. Threw me out like trash after everything I did for him. I know what he did in Aspen. I know he forged the documents. Then she dropped the bomb. I helped him do it. My blood ran cold. This woman was an accomplice. Was this a trap? Could I trust her? She could easily betray me again. But I had no choice. I needed an insider. And her anger felt genuine. It felt like the kind of anger that burns bridges and tears down empires. Why are you telling me this now? I asked, testing her. Because he promised me a promotion, a partnership, $1 million bonus. She spat. He used me and discarded me the moment he felt secure. He cut me loose with nothing. I want revenge. And I have proof. What kind of proof? The original drafts of the forged documents with his handwritten notes, and the receipt for the sedative he bought. If this story has your heart racing, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe. Every click helps us keep uncovering stories that deserve to be heard. Because the truth was darker than I imagined. We met in a crowded diner. Jessica was terrified, constantly looking over her shoulder. She handed me a USB drive, sliding it across the table under a newspaper. It's all there, she said. The emails, the financial arrangements, everything. But there's something else you need to know. The reason Mark is liquidating everything so quickly. This was the twist, the moment everything clicked into place, the missing piece of the puzzle that explained his desperation, his willingness to commit murder. He's in debt, Jessica whispered, leaning closer. Deeply in debt. Not to a bank, to very dangerous people. Organized crime. I stared at her, the realization hitting me like a physical blow. He borrowed millions to fund his lifestyle, and covered disastrous investments before he even married Sarah. Jessica continued. He was living a lie. He used your company's reputation to secure the loans. How much? I asked, my voice low. $50 million. By the end of the quarter, if he didn't pay, they were going to kill him. It wasn't just greed, it was survival. Mark hadn't stolen my company to run it. He stole it to strip it for parts and pay off the mob before they buried him. He was willing to destroy my life's work, murder me, and manipulate my daughter, all to save his own skin. The depth of his depravity was staggering. Now I had the motive, the means, the proof. But I didn't just want justice. I wanted retribution. I wanted to dismantle his life, the way he had tried to dismantle mine. And I knew exactly how to do it. I had a nasty surprise waiting for him. A poison pill, buried deep in the company's bylaws. designed to protect Sterling Corp from hostile takeovers. Article 53. I reviewed the bylaws with David. The clause was complex. It was a legal gamble. If the courts didn't interpret it our way, we would lose everything. Mark would walk away with the money. It's a gamble I'm willing to take, I said. We have to execute it perfectly. The plan was Mark was hosting a grand gala, celebrating the rebranding of Vance Sterling Holdings and the finalization of the asset liquidation. The moment he believed he would be free and clear, the money transferred. The mob paid off. The city's elite would all be there. It was the perfect stage for his downfall. The night of the gala was clear and cold. I stood outside the Sterling Tower. My building. I was wearing a new suit. My face was thinner, harder, marked by the ordeal. I still walked with a cane, but I walked tall. David met me at the side entrance. He looked nervous, but resolute. Are you ready, Robert? Mark is about to give his speech. The wire transfers finalize at midnight. I've been ready since I woke up in that clinic, I replied. We took the service elevator. The sounds of the party drifted toward us. Music, laughter, the clinking of glasses, the sounds of a world that thought I was dead. We slipped into the back of the grand ballroom. It was a dazzling display of wealth and power. Mark was on the stage, basking in the applause. The picture of success. Sarah stood beside him. Beautiful, but distant. A diamond-clad doll. My heart ached for her. Thank you, Mark was saying, his voice booming. Tonight marks a new beginning. We honor the legacy of Robert Sterling, but we embrace the future. A future I am proud to lead. He raised his glass for a toast. It was tough. I started walking towards the stage. The crowd near the back noticed me first. A hush fell over the room, spreading like a wave. People gasped, pointed. Is that Robert Sterling? I thought he was dead. I walked slowly down the center aisle. My eyes locked on Mark. The silence was absolute. The only sound was the tapping of my cane on the marble floor. Mark stopped speaking mid-sentence. Confused. Then he saw me. His face drained of all color. The glass slipped from his hand, shattering on the stage. He looked like he had seen a ghost. Dad? Sarah whispered, her hand flying to her mouth. Hello, Mark, I said, my voice clear and strong. I walked up the steps onto the stage. You seem surprised. This is impossible, Mark sputtered. He grabbed the microphone. Security, get this man out of here. He's an imposter. A fraud. Security won't be helping you tonight, Mark, I said calmly. I took the microphone from his trembling hand. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Robert Sterling, and I am the rightful CEO of Sterling Corp. Mark lunged for the microphone, his facade crumbling. He's delusional. Robert Sterling is dead. I have the death certificate. Do you? I asked. Or do you just have more forgeries? I signaled to David. The large screens behind the stage flickered to life. They showed the forged incapacity documents, side by side with my real signature. Then the receipt for the sedative. Mark Vance drugged me in Aspen, I announced. He left me for dead in a blizzard and forged these documents to steal my company. The crowd gasped. The room erupted. Flashbulbs popped. The screens changed again. A video started playing, the recorded confession of Dr. Evans. Mr. Vance paid us $500,000 to declare Robert Sterling incapacitated. We never examined him. It was a fraud. Mark was desperate. Lies. This is slander. He's trying to ruin me. Ruin you? I countered. I'm just revealing the ruin you brought upon yourself. The screens changed again. The financial records. The wire transfers to the Cayman Islands. The evidence of Mark's debts. Mr. Vance was liquidating the assets, I explained, to pay off $50 million in debts to organized crime figures who were threatening his life. The betrayal was complete. I looked at Sarah. She was sobbing, realization crashing down on her. The man she loved was a liar, a thief, and a murderer. Mark looked trapped, but he still had one last card to play. A sneer formed on his face. Fine, he spat. So you survived. It doesn't matter. The assets are sold. The money is being transferred as we speak. The company is mine. You have nothing. It was time for the nasty surprise. You are mistaken, Mark, I said, allowing myself a cold smile. You see, you were so busy stealing, you forgot to read the fine print. I looked at David. He nodded. Years ago, I implemented Article 53, the hostile takeover contingency. It also applies to internal coups based on fraud. The clause stipulates that in the event of a fraudulent transfer of power, I continued, all controlling shares are immediately transferred to a protected trust. Furthermore, all transactions initiated by the fraudulent leadership are automatically frozen, reversed, and placed under the control of the trust executor. Mark's mouth opened. No sound came out. He was choking on his own greed. The executor, I added, is David Chen. The realization hit him. He had failed. Completely and utterly. You haven't been the CEO, Mark. For the past 3 months, you've been playing pretend in a frozen kingdom. Every liquidation was automatically flagged and reversed by the trust. The money never left our control. I leaned closer. The $50 million you owe, it never got paid. Reed in disbelief twisted his face. He had risked everything and gained nothing. He was ruined, and the people he owed money to knew it. The doors at the back of the ballroom burst open. Police officers, along with 2 agents from the FBI, rushed in. Mark Vance, one of the agents announced, stepping onto the stage. You are under arrest for grand fraud, forgery, and the attempted murder of Robert Sterling. As they handcuffed him, Mark struggled, screaming curses. He looked at me one last time, his eyes filled with hatred, and a sudden, terrifying understanding of the fate that awaited him. The aftermath was messy. The news exploded. The story of my survival and Mark's betrayal was front-page news for weeks. Sterling Corp's stock fluctuated but stabilized once David took temporary control and assured the shareholders that the assets were secure. Mark's trial was quick. With the overwhelming evidence, he was found guilty on all charges, sentenced to life in prison. We also learned that the organized crime figures he owed money to had their own form of justice waiting for him inside. The company was safe, but my family was shattered. The victory felt hollow. Sarah filed for divorce immediately. She moved back home with me. The first few weeks were filled with silence. The grief, the guilt, the betrayal. It was too heavy for words. She was consumed by the realization that she had married a monster and had defended him against her own father. One evening, a few months later, I found her in the study, a room I had spent too much of my life in, prioritizing work over family. She was looking at an old photo of her mother and me when Sarah was just a baby. We looked so happy. I was so blind, Dad, she whispered, tears welling in her eyes, her face ravaged by the emotional toll. I believed him. I loved him. I almost let him destroy everything. I even pushed you away when you came back. She paused, her voice cracking. How can you forgive me? I sat down beside her and took her hand. Her hand was cold. There is nothing to forgive, Sarah, I said gently. He was convincing. He fooled everyone. You were not to blame for his darkness. He manipulated you, used your love as a weapon. But I wanted the life he promised. She insisted, sobbing. I was impatient. I complained to him about you not stepping back. I gave him the ammunition he needed. I helped him justify it. We all want a good life, I said, but we cannot build it on lies and betrayal. We talked for hours, the most honest conversation we had ever had. I admitted my own fault, how my ambition had kept me away from her, how I had prioritized the company over my family, how I had admired Mark's ruthlessness without seeing his lack of morality. I had pushed him toward her, seeing him as the heir I always wanted. I had been blind too. I thought legacy was about buildings, about money. I admitted, my voice heavy with regret. I built an empire, and I left it vulnerable. I left you vulnerable. I looked at my daughter, really looked at her, for the first time in years. I was wrong, I said. Legacy is about family, and I almost lost you. We cried together, mourning the loss of the future we thought we had, the broken trust that would take years to rebuild. It was the first time we had truly connected in decades, brought together by the tragedy that nearly destroyed us. In the end, I made a decision. I called David. David, I said, I want you to take over as CEO, permanently. David was stunned. Robert, I can't. This is your company. It is, but I'm tired, David. I spent my life building this empire, and it almost cost me everything. I don't want to spend my remaining years in boardrooms. I looked at Sarah. She was smiling, a genuine smile, the first one I had seen in months. I want to focus on what truly matters. I stepped back. David took over, guiding Sterling Corp with integrity. I focused on helping Sarah heal. We traveled. We talked. We learned to be father and daughter again. A year later, the city looked different. I was no longer the powerful CEO, just Robert Sterling, a father. I sat on a bench in the park, watching the sunset. The scars on my body had faded, but the emotional ones remained. Mark was gone, his name forgotten. The empire was safe, but the true victory wasn't the revenge or the reclaiming of my wealth. It was the realization that true value lies not in the billions we accumulate, but in the trust we share, the love we give, and the life we choose to live. Mark thought he could steal my life to buy his own. He thought money and power were everything, but he learned the hard way that true strength isn't measured in dollars. It's measured in the will to survive, the power of the truth, and the enduring bonds of family. I had survived the blizzard and found my way home. Thanks for listening. Please rate our story in the comment. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe.